So good morning, Hardik sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now we are going to start. Are you ready?
Yes, बिल्कुल.
Okay, but
Is my voice coming clearly or having some disturbance?
no, your voice is clear, but your screen has been changed.
Yes. It will be now normal.
Okay, done. Okay, so good morning, students.
Good
Today,
morning, sir.
today comparatively, there are very less students are still attended. I think this is the effect of Navratri.
Might be.
So anyhow, but we have to continue our program. So today we have with us Dr. Hardik Shah. Sir is working as associate professor in microbiology at Mehsana Urban Institute of Science at Ganpat University. Sir is also working as coordinator of medical laboratory technology as well as coordinator of UGBT of GSBTM of North Gujarat region. Right? And most important thing is that Sir qualified CSI UGC NET with All India rank 45. Sir has also qualified ICAR NET exam with 64%. And Sir has teaching experience of more than 15 years in PG as well as UG. Sir published more than 10 research publications as well as books and book chapters. So, sir is hardcore microbiologist. So, once again, I welcome Hardik sir for his expert talk on host parasite interaction. So, Hardik sir,
Yes, sir. Thank you so much
oh,
for a nice introduction and for your kind words. So basically, can students speak by themselves by turning on their mic?
yes, sir,
Okay. So I would be interactive in between some right.
definitely. Some students are very much interactive.
That will be fine. So, hello students. Today we are going to discuss about host parasite interactions. Now, keep in mind, um, one of my teachers was always asking. There was one statement which is called "parasite always benefits." Parasite always benefits, and who is in loss? That is a host. So basically, we are here to discuss about host parasite interactions. Host means the organism on which parasite resides, and parasite is totally dependent on the host. Right. Let us see how the relation is working. So basically, when we discuss about parasite, we can have some definitions like parasites, pathogens, and so forth. So all these terms are connected with those organisms or basically microorganisms which are actually harmful to others. So when we discussed about a relation between two organisms, right? Pathogenicity means one is benefited while other is in loss. Okay, so in that case, pathogens are those organisms which cause a disease or some loss to the host cell. How do they work actually? So pathogen carries out three tasks while they are in routine. Number one, they colonize the host first of all. Basically they have to colonize, right? जैसे हम लोग कभी कभी बातें करते हैं ना कि ये उसने you can just take example of some other countries whose soldiers are just occupying other countries land. right? One by one. Basically, they are colonizing. So here they will colonize the host to establish a huge colony, basically a population. This population can be of benefit to the pathogens only. Number two, to reach an appropriate niche, avoid host defense and replicate. In short, once it gets colonized into the host, it has to reach appropriate niche. Appropriate niche in the sense area or basically location which favors their growth, right? And in addition to that, they are totally benefited. Means maximum benefit of the host can be taken, right? That is to be done over here. So it has to reach appropriate niche and it has to avoid host defense mechanism. Basically, what happens? Every host has a defense. We people also have our own host defense mechanisms, like we have immune system. So immune system is responsible for our protection actually. So it has to avoid the host defense. See what happens. कभी कभी हम मूवीज देखते हैं, डायलॉग आता है. द डायलॉग इज, इफ यू वांट टू कैच द क्रिमिनल यू हैव टू थिंक लाइक क्रिमिनल. अगर आपको पैथोजन को अंडरस्टैंड करना है तो पैथोजन की तरह सोचिए, तो आप पैथोजन को अच्छे से समझ पाएंगे, है ना? So basically what happens, it has to reach an appropriate niche. The first thing, find a suitable location or suitable habitat, then avoid the host defenses. एक तो अपना काम कर लिया. Secondly, defenses has to be avoided, don't get captured. And finally, when all things are done, everything is favorable, go for replication and multiply. And second thing is also there, one more, which is followed by many pathogens, which is exit from the infected host to spread to uninfected one. Okay, so basically it is about more and more spreading. Pathogen thinks for itself only. Okay, pathogen के पास brain नहीं होता, but वो एक ही चीज के बारे में होता है, that is multiplying. Okay, now let's move ahead. These are the contents of today's discussion. Basically, these contents are of at least about 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours, but we will just go for most important parts so that we can finish within our time limit, which is provided. Okay, so first, basically moving through the pathogen. Suppose the host is a human. अभी consider करते हैं. We are considering that the host is human, right? So first of all, human has some barriers. Can anybody give me example of barriers which are protecting us? Yeah,
Skin first.
very good. The skin. Anything
Mucosal
else?
layer. Mucosal layer.
Very good. Excellent. So basically you are giving me example of external as well as internal areas which works as a barriers, right? So basically what pathogen has to do, it has to cross the barrier first to get invasion. Border to cross karna hi padega anyhow, right? So basically what we know is skin is one of the barrier, actually major barrier, which protects most part of human body from the environment, right? Keeps it protected. And when we think of other things, other means there are certain human tissues whose boundaries are less robust. They are not as robust as the skin. We are taking example, the nasal inlet, mouth, varieties of orifices present on our body, right? You can take example of gastrointestinal tract, basically the tract which is open with the atmosphere. Starting from your mouth to exit to the anum, whole tract is susceptible. Same way, genitourinary tract is also susceptible for the same, right? So these areas have some less strong. Actually, they are strong, definitely, but they are not as robust as the skin. So in that case, what we know is when we think about this skin and the epithelium, in that case, they are densely populated by inhabitant microorganisms to which we call normal flora. We call them normal flora. So basically what will happen, how the pathogen may enter the host. Main thing is a wound in the barriers. When there is a breach in the barrier, the pathogen will access or get the access to the niche. Okay, so wound is one of the examples where the pathogens can get a breach. I'm taking one example over here actually. Though there are certain organisms which are normal flora, but they can be harmful. One of the major example is a bacteroid species, which is actually anaerobic organism. which is mostly found in the intestine as a normal flora. Okay, but when there are certain immune compromisation, right? In that case, they turn into peritonitis. They can cause severe disease, peritonitis. Similarly, you can have example of two more organisms, which is Staphylococcus for skin and nose, while Streptococcus in the throat. These are the organisms which are actually normal flora, but when they find any breach or any wound in the skin, they will just go for pathogenicity. You may have observed sometimes sore throats. कभी कभी गले में खिचखिच हो जाती है ना, विक्स की एड आती है कभी कभी. So same thing. It is one of the reasons which is called streptococcus sore throats. Now, there are certain pathogens to whom we call primary pathogens. Now, these pathogens are special for our discussion because they need not wait for wound. They need not to wait for wound. उनको wound के लिए wait करना ही नहीं है. They can cross the skin through localization of saliva in biting insects, which are called basically arthropods. Common term used over here is vectors. They carries the microorganisms. Vectors are small paste, you can say, right? And they carries vectors in their body, mostly saliva. Now, moving to the next part, I am taking example of Plasmodium vivax, right? So Plasmodium vivax is one of the agent which causes malaria. Okay, who is the vector? Let me tell. चलो बताओ आप लोग. Who is the vector for this Plasmodium vivax?
Mosquito.
Sir, mosquito, female Anopheles.
Yeah, very good, excellent. So mosquitoes are those vectors which carries actually Plasmodium vivax, and they are responsible. In short, these organisms need not to wait for any breach or any wound. They are having helping hands of their suitable vectors. Secondly, you can take example of viruses which causes a hemorrhagic fever. They also are spread by various vectors, right? Various vectors are there, ticks and others. And basically, you can have examples like yellow fever, dengue, encephalitis. So in that case, you can take examples of various other vectors, the mosquito, the tick, and lot many others. We will understand all these things one by one with examples. Okay, basically this topic is very vast, and when we cover all the topics it is very long, but we will cover important examples with proper example explanation. Okay, so that we can understand very well. So first topic is behavioral changes. Now what do you mean by behavior? Suppose you are having some shock or bad news, what will happen? You will behave abnormally. हाँ, फ्रेंड सर्कल में बैठते हैं और कोई बंदा उदास होता है तो क्या होता है, उसका बिहेवियर चेंज किया है. हाँ, you may have observed the behavioral change. So basically there is behavioral change after infection. Now to whom this behavioral change applies? This behavioral change applies to vectors. Okay, this change actually applies to vectors. Let's go for example. I'm taking example of Trypanosoma brucei. Basically, it is basically causative agent of sleeping sickness, and its vector is tsetse fly. Its vector is tsetse fly. I think we had heard about this thing in our bachelor study, right? So basically, the vector is tsetse fly. Now, what happens actually over here? What kind of behavioral change is observed in case of tsetse fly? Tsetse fly, which are actually having localization of trypanosoma, are observed to bite more frequently as compared to normal normal tsetse flies. Okay, what happens is due to infection of tsetse fly, it has been observed that these flies are biting more frequently. So more frequent biting results into more frequent spread. So always keep in mind, इंसान हो या vector हो या कोई भी हो, they're always thinking of their own spread. Okay, it is just rule. बोल सकते हैं आप लोग. There is one book actually, if you are having some time, spare some time to read one book which is called The Selfish DNA. Try to do Google, it is freely available. The book is called Selfish DNA, right? You will get lot many things or much more knowledge about it. That's good book. Now moving in continuous motion. Second example is of Yersinia pestis, which causes bubonic plague. Acha, can you give me example or name of one city of Gujarat which has been observed with bubonic plague outbreak in past?
Surat.
Very good. The Surat. Surat was once upon a time, Surat was observed to be having a huge outbreak of Yersinia pestis, basically bubonic plague. So what happens over here actually? Yersinia forms aggregates into forget. Okay, in the forget of basically the vector actually, we call them in Gujarati we call them chachad actually, right? Basically they form aggregates in the forget and multiplies. Now, when they multiply, the aggregates actually causes blockage into gastrointestinal tract of the vector. Okay, GIT is blocked, and because of that, they are always having sensation that they are still hungry, and they always bite. Their hunger sensation is affected because of these aggregates, and because of that, they bite frequently. So these kind of behavioral changes observed into vectors upon localization of some pathogens. Okay, basically they are not pathogen for the vectors, they are pathogen for the host to whom it will bite. Yeah, you can see the example of plague bacteria within the flea. It is a flea actually, and in the midgut you can see the pink arrows, which are actually the aggregates of Yersinia pestis. Moving ahead, actually we are going to the one more topic actually, which is called avoiding clearance by the host. Yes. So basically, how the host remains protected. As we discussed, because of normal flora. Second, normal flora can give a competition to the pathogens and may prevent it somewhat extent. Secondly, the host organs are kept sterile. Mostly our organs are sterile. Okay. And the third is there is role of mucus. Mucus is responsible for flushing out many microorganisms. So mucus is very important. Even also it is working as a barrier actually, right? Secondly, what the pathogen has to do, it has only first target, that is cross the barriers. That's it, nothing else. Okay, so basically it has to colonize the skin the first and basically get it. Okay, get the breach. I'm just taking example of Escherichia coli actually. When you observe Escherichia coli, normally what happens? Our urinary tract and other tracts are kept clear mostly by flushing. While we urinate, the tract is flushed out. So basically, bacteria stays away from the flushing action. Okay. Now what happens? We can take example of certain E. coli which infects our organs, especially genitourinary tract. So it has been observed that these E. coli can get adherence to the epithelium. Okay, they get adherence to the epithelium using their special proteins called adhesins. They use adhesins proteins. Okay, so while they use adhesins, yeah, they use adhesin proteins. So these adhesins actually are used for binding with host cell tightly. So what happens? E. coli gets tightly bounded to epithelial cells, okay, by using these adhesins. And where you can find these adhesins? Adhesins are actually a part of P pillars. Okay, the pillars of E. coli, you can say P pillars. And basically, the length of pillars is important. Longer the pillars, more from the adhesion will be. Okay, so basically, adhesion is mostly adhesins are located in the pillars, mostly at the tip portion. Now, what will happen? These adhesins have a longer, they're based on this P pillar. If P pillars is longer, it will cross the mucus layer and will interact with the glycolipid disaccharides of the epithelial cells. So mucus cannot prevent localization if the E. coli is a special one, means having P pillars with adhesins. Secondly, you can take example of one more organism of E. coli, one more variant of E. coli actually, which infects bladder. Okay, these E. coli uses different adhesins. They use different adhesins, and basically they are not able to adhere to actually kidney, but rather than they adhere to bladder. So in short, E. coli can use varieties of adhesins, and these adhesins could be specific for typical particular cells. Okay, the E. coli which infects kidney have adhesins which can firmly bind with epithelial cells of kidney. Same happens with E. coli. This has special adhesins which can bind to the mucus, cross the mucus layer of urinary tract, okay, especially bladder. So both E. coli are different, although they are E. coli, but they have different adhesins. You can take an example over here. See the diagram. I have just captured some movements. So these are the E. coli which are located on the bladder or surface, and you can see the fine tentacles of this E. coli cell. Actually, this is the E. coli cell. I'm just highlighting, and you can see the fine pillars over here in the electron micrograph, right? So this is how the E. coli can interact with this. So which is the first mechanism? Adhesins. Keep it in mind. Okay. Moving ahead. Second thing is avoid clearance bias. We'll continue it. Now what happens? As I told you, adhesins are specific. They have a specific host range for pathogenic bacteria. Some pathogens like E. coli, some can bind to E. coli, basically kidney cells, and secondly, some can bind to bladder cells. Just take example of one stomach. Example लेते हैं. I'm just taking one more example. First example was of E. coli, right? Which can have utilization of adhesins and other two various epithelium. I'm taking a second example where there is one more bacterium which infects the stomach. Okay, what is the pH of stomach?
Acidic.
Acidic. Can you specify some value for this? Guess करना है. Just guess it.
Sir, 1.5.
Yeah, good. So it is near about 1 to almost, right? So it is very acidic. Normally, no bacteria can survive in this acidic stomach. Okay. And second phenomena over here, somehow if bacteria enters into stomach, they will be washed out with one mechanism called peristaltic washing. Okay. So in that case, normally stomach is designed by evolution in such a way so that no bacterium can colonize the stomach. But there is one exception over here. There is one organism called Helicobacter pylori. Okay, it is causative agent of ulcer in the stomach. Okay, and it may result into stomach cancer sometimes if not getting proper treatment. Okay, so basically what happens? The Helicobacter pylori is a harmless commensal. Okay, but what happens is while it is in stomach, it produces one enzyme called urease. It produces some enzyme called urease, and this urease is responsible for what? What is substrate for urease enzyme, and what is the product?
Urea and product ammonia.
Excellent. So it will produce ammonia, and it covers itself, surrounds itself with the ammonia, and because of that, what will happen? It remains protected from the atmosphere of stomach. So first thing it had done is उसने host से खुद को बचा लिया, right? It has just good protection mechanism. Second thing is it express different 5 types of adhesin molecules. So ये 5 adhesins जो होते हैं, all these helping them to reside or adhere into the stomach. Okay, and finally the last thing is they produce cytotoxins. What is the meaning of word cyto? Cyto means, cyto stands for
Cell.
the cell. Very good. So it is toxic for the stomach cells and which result into ulcer. If untreated, it may result into stomach cancer. Okay. Moving ahead, taking second example of Bordetella pertussis. It is causative agent of disease called whooping cough. Okay. So basically what happens, it is a colonizer of our respiratory tract. Pylori is a basically inhabitant of digestive tract, while this Bordetella pertussis is inhabitant of respiratory tract. Basically, they colonize into respiratory epithelium, and main thing they do is they circumvent the normal clearance by tightly binding with the ciliated cells. Okay, the ciliated cells actually are found in everywhere in the lungs, internal surface, in our what you can say, the canals, right? So what will happen? These organisms expresses 4 adhesins. and these all four adhesins has ability to bind with glycolipids which are present on ciliated cells. Okay, so basically what happens, ciliated cells are very special. Basically they are responsible for protection of our humans, right? They protect us. Now the thing is, this bacterium can entrap into it, and rather than getting entrapped and get damaged or basically removed, they will simply bind to the cells using these adhesins. Okay, and it will produce a toxin which is called pertussis toxin. Now this pertussin toxin is responsible for killing of ciliated cells. It is also kind of cytotoxin which is meant specifically for ciliated cells of respiratory tract. Okay, so these two are prime examples of two other things. First example we discussed was E. coli for genitourinary tract. Second example, taken the example of stomach for Helicobacterium pylori. Third example is of respiratory tract. Okay, Bordetella pertussis. Moving ahead with the more discussion. Actually, when we discuss about cytotoxins, you should understand some basics of cytotoxin. Actually, probably you are going to get more knowledge about this effect of toxins here in your upcoming lecture in a cell signaling. But still, I will have some introduction, basic introduction to this, right? So basically, the cholera toxin and pertussis toxin both are almost similar. These both are actually a kind of enzyme which is called ADP ribosylating enzyme. Okay. Now, what will happen? Uh, can anybody confirm? Did you had studied about GPCR, G protein coupled receptors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. That will be easy for me now. So what happens actually? These enzymes acts on G alpha, right? G alpha is one of the important subunits of these receptors, GPCRs, and basically G alpha of GI for inhibitory, right? So in that case, what will happen? It will inhibit the ability of G alpha to suppress an enzyme called anilylate cyclase. Okay, inhibitory action will be suppressed, result into production of more and more cyclic AMP, which interferes the pathway in the neutrophils example, right? So in that case, you can take example of Bordetella pertussis, which produce adenylate cyclase of its own, right? So basically, these two toxins can produce a special effect, okay? And in addition, Bordetella is one of the prime examples which can be considered for production of its own adenylyl cyclase. In short, adenylyl cyclase production has to be increased to affect the cell signaling system. Okay. Now, what is effect over here? The adenylyl cyclase of Bordetella pertussis is active when it is bound to calmodulin in the host cell cytoplasm. Calmodulin is one of the important effectors of cell signaling. Okay. So, what will happen? When Bordetella colonize respiratory tract, they cause paroxysmal coughing, right? So, frequently the host coughs. If we take example of same toxin but different organ like cholera toxin, which organ will be affected by cholera toxin? I'm waiting for your answer.
Sir, enterocytes.
Which organ of human body actually?
Intestine?
Intestine. That's fine. So basically what happens? Same kind of toxin with ADP ribosylating activity have a same thing, increase in ADP, basically production of a cyclic AMP. When it is in gut, it causes a watery diarrhea, while the same kind of protein in respiratory tract causes paroxysmal coughing. Okay, so different organs, different effects. Just give me a moment. I'm facing some trouble. Can you confirm whether my screen is visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, then it's fine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for confirming. We will continue now. One more example we can take over here is of EPEC, which you call enteropathogenic E. coli. Now, what happens over here? It is very interesting actually. In India, we are not able to observe much more cases of EPEC outbreak, but these are most frequently found in outside countries or developed countries. Right? What is a connection? It is still of research. But thing is, these EPEC are little bit different E. coli. They are actually pathogenic in nature. Hence, they are known as enteropathogenic E. coli. Basically, they cause diarrhea in a young children. Okay, they are responsible for causing diarrhea in children's. And thing is, they don't have adhesins. उनके पास adhesin नहीं होता. They have a speciality over here actually. The speciality is they are able to deliver receptor protein using their secretion systems, type 3 secretion system. Right? Bacteria may have different secretion systems, type 3 and other systems. Here it uses type 3 secretion system to deliver its receptor protein to the host cell. How does it work? It is very interesting mechanism. Let me discuss. There are lot many research papers available for this topic if you study, right? Lot many research papers. The mechanism is very well depth, but we will understand it with great connected mechanism. Let us see. So there is one protein called TIR. Mark this notice. Basically, I will show you diagram also in the next slide. But mark few things over here. One is called TIR. TIR is a protein. Basically, it is a receptor protein of E. coli. Number 2, enzyme of host, which is called PTK phosphorylases, right? And what they trigger? They trigger special mechanism called actin polymerization. So basically, what is their purpose? Their purpose is to evade host cell action. What is their purpose? Their purpose is to evade host cell action and exert pathogenicity. Clear? Now, how it works, let us see. I'm showing you one diagram. Yeah. So you can see this diagram. What you can observe, the left one, we will focus on diagram A first. Focus on the protein called TIR. This protein is special because it is synthesized by E. coli itself. And the thing is that TIR is a receptor for its own protein, which is called intimin. So E. coli normally cannot bind the host cell. Host cell don't have any receptor for it. Normally what happens? We know about something ligand receptor interaction, right? So in that case, host cell don't have receptor. So E. coli makes its own receptor and go for secretion of the same to the host via type 3 secretion system. So what you can see, using type 3 secretion system, it will transfer or deliver it to the host cell. Host cell will express the same onto its membrane. Okay. And upon expression, now the host cell will be able to bind with the E. coli. E. coli has a special ligand which is called intimin. This intimin is responsible for binding with the host cell, which has a TIR expressed on its plasma membrane. In short, अगर host के पास कोई protein नहीं है तो उसको देते हैं भाई तू रख, right? I am giving you. It is just like आप किसी के घर जा रहे हैं, उसके घर पे बैठने के लिए चेयर नहीं है, आप खुद की चेयर लेकर जाते हो, वहां लगाते हो, बोलते हैं मैं यहाँ पर बैठूंगा, isn't it? So this is how it works. The protein is TIR, which is receptor for E. coli. Host cell don't have it, just transfer it. Now what is result actually? Now upon binding with intimin, it is triggering a cell signaling system. ये पूरा एक cell signaling system activate करता है, and as a result of it, it result into phosphorylation of TIR. Which residues? Tyrosine residues. Clear? And because of this phosphorylation, it triggers subsequent actions like assembly of actin filaments within the host cell. Okay, assembly of actin filaments within the cells towards the site of interaction. It results into formation of spatial structure which is called actin pedestal. It is called actin pedestal. Clear? So what will happen? Actually, the phosphorylation of the tear result into generation of one docking site. Actually, focus on the part. The phosphorylation generates a docking site for varieties of host proteins, and these proteins will just cluster together at the docking site, and subsequently it result into filament assembly, actin filament assembly. It is called actin filament pedestal. It result into exertion of pathogenic action of EPEC onto host cell. Okay, so it is a special mechanism and special example of EPEC, enteropathogenic E. coli. Now let's move to next part. Now we will move towards entering and the leaving host cell. Just give me a second. Yeah, please confirm whether the screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, so now let's have example of some pathogens. If you classify pathogens based on their localization to the host cell, you can observe intracellular and extracellular pathogens, right? Those who reside in outside the cell, the extracellular, and those who inhabit the host cell are called intracellular, right? Now, what are advantages of being intracellular? अगर parasite intracellular है तो what are the advantages it will get? Number one advantage is no antibody access, means whatever kind of antibodies the host produce against the pathogen, they will be ineffective because the pathogen is inside the cell. So antibody cannot enter the cell actually, right? So in that case, no antibody access. Number two, when it is within the cell, they cannot be a target for phagocytes. So they will escape phagocytic action too. So it is double advantage. Number one, antibody is useless for that. Secondly, no phagocytes at all, right? And third, the most advantage is get access to nutrient in the host cell cytoplasm. Host cell cytoplasm for this pathogen is a rich source of nutrients. Just enjoy, nothing doing. So basically, what these pathogens do actually, they have to evolve or develop with two mechanisms, right, for effective pathogenicity. Number one, mechanism for entry. Second, mechanism of exit, right? Now, we will discuss about intracellular pathogens, taking the example of viruses. We will take example of virus. Okay. So basically, what virus can do? So first of all, it has to enter the host cell. उसे सबसे पहले host cell में enter होना पड़ेगा, right? So basically, it is first step, which is binding to the host cell. It has to bind first of all. Without binding, it cannot enter. So in that case, what it has to do is it will use specific receptors of the host cell to which it can bind, followed by its internalization and entry within the host cell. There is one term for virus which is called obligate intracellular parasite. Obligate intracellular parasite. 3 words. Okay. Parasite is understandable. Intracellular is also understandable. What is the meaning of obligate? What is the meaning of obligate? Can anybody speak about it? What is the meaning of word obligate? No one.
Sir,
Okay.
they
Let
live,
yes.
sir, they live only as an intracellular parasite and not extracellular or any other.
Yes. Obligate. Yes. Obligate means strict. That mode only. Nothing else. Compulsory it should be there. Right. Obligate. So obligate means they are only doing that thing, that there must be intracellular parasite. There is no other mode available. Okay. So discussing about bacteria first of all, taking example of bacteriophage lambda, right? So basically what happens, this bacteriophage lambda actually fools E. coli. Okay, actually it fools E. coli. How it fools E. coli? ये mechanism सब request की diary में note करते रहिए. You can keep note, right? So basically what happens, E. coli bacteriophage lambda is actually fooling E. coli. How it fools E. coli? They will bind to the surface receptor which is responsible for uptake of maltose. That means E. coli समझता है कि maltose आ गया, and actually in reality it is not maltose, it is a virus, right? So it is fooling E. coli actually. So it is a strategy developed by lambda-phages to enter the E. coli cell, use the surface receptor of maltose and enter the E. coli. That's it, nothing doing. Second example, that is a virus, herpes simplex virus, right? What they do is they simply bind to heparin sulfate proteoglycans which are present on the host cell surface. Some of the organisms, or basically pathogens, use some cell surface receptors which are abundant in nature. Now, which are abundant cell surface receptor? Take an example, one is sialic acid. Basically, all the oligosaccharide which are containing sialic acid. Okay, you may have heard about sialic acid. It has very much importance in the complement action and lot many that, right? Basically, it protects our cells by marking them as our cells. Okay, an example is of influenza virus. Influenza virus can get access by binding with the sialic acids. Now, one is rabies virus. Now, it is a little bit unique actually. Rabies virus can recognize and bind to nerve growth factor receptor. The cell understands that it is a nerve growth factor. In reality, it is not that factor. It is rabies virus, right? मतलब knock knock, understandable, right? Knock knock करने पर बाहर से आवाज कुछ और आती है और अंदर आता कोई और है. That is the thing for these viruses. Special strategies. Now, there are certain viruses, these are a little bit important actually. They require co-receptors. Whatever example we discussed till now requires direct interaction with the receptors. Now we will give example of those who requires co-receptors. Okay, primary and secondary co-receptors. Let us see. Take an example of HIV. HIV, what is full form of HIV?
Human immunodeficiency virus.
Very good. So the name itself says it is immunodeficiency virus. It causes deficiency, immune deficiency, right? It disables immune system or harms the immune system. So what happens? Which cells are affected by HIV?
Lymphocyte.
Specifically, which lymphocytes?
T helper.
T lymphocyte.
Very good. And they have which receptor? CD4 and CD8. So it targets actually those lymphocytes with CD4 receptor. Which T lymphocyte has CD4 receptor?
T
First.
yeah, TH cell.
See, I'm just showing you one small technique to understand how, which cell contains CD4, right? What you can see on the screen, which figure? What is the digit I had drawn?
4.
4. I'm expanding both the ends and the cell is
Helper cell.
TH. Is it clear now? Yeah, it is best way to understand which cells has CD4. Just expand 4, you will know it is TH. So the rest is CD8, it is with TC cells. Clear? सो फ्यूचर में कभी भी अटक जाओ कि कहाँ पर क्या है, तो ये आइडिया यूज कर लेना. यू विल रिमेंबर विच वन इज विथ TH एंड विच वन इज TC. Clear. Now, HIV requires two receptors actually. One is a CD4 primary receptor and CCR5 or CXCR4 as a co-receptor. Okay, it is specific thing. It is exclusively for HIV. सब वायरस को ऐसा नहीं होता. Right. Moving ahead. Take example of macrophages. Macrophage are having CCR5 and T cell contains CXCR4. These receptor present on these cells actually. Have a look at this diagram on the left side and the right side. You can find macrophage and helper T cell. We are focusing on macrophage now. You can see CCR5. CCR5 is actually beta chemokine receptor. This receptor is actually formed for the purpose of receiving a beta chemokine. Now HIV fools it. How? It first interacts with the CD4 and then interact with CCR5. Clear? And you can see what is the purpose of. Just a moment. Yeah. Yeah, focusing on macrophages. What is purpose of these CCR5? They are meant to receive beta chemokines, as for example, Rentis, MIP1 alpha, and MIP1 beta. Right? Their purpose is to receive this. Issue is HIV fools them. How? By recognizing CD4 and this provides direct mechanism for entry of virus into the cell. Moving to the TH cell. TH cell has CXCR4, which is actually alpha chemokine receptor in reality. And it is basically for receiving purely alpha chemokine. Example of alpha chemokine is SDF1. HIV will recognize CD4 first and recognize CXCR4 together and will enter the cell. So these are the special mechanisms which are adopted by macrophage and helper T cell. It might be clear to you now. Now moving to next part, mode of entry. Till now we discussed how it recognizes the host cell surface. Now how they enter, mode of entry. So keep in mind there are lots of mechanisms we'll understand. Starting with basic with few example of viruses. Number one, what is the task to be done by virus first of all while entering the host cell? Upon entering, it will first do is release its nucleic acid genome into the host cell. Okay, host cell में वो अपना nucleic acid genome insert कर देगा. First thing, okay, primary thing, and rest the job will be done by host cell machinery. Now, one of the mechanism adopted over here is a membrane fusion. एक mechanism है जिसे बोलेंगे क्या? Membrane fusion. So this strategy is adopted by the viruses which are called enveloped viruses. Okay, the enveloped viruses enter by fusion following endocytosis. Now, mark one thing that there are two important points to ensure the fusion. You can see the red diagram. HIV/AIDS का discussion हमने ले लिया, है ना? It basically binds to the host cell, then goes for fusion and follows the strategy of uncoating. Okay, so point number one is of HIV, which fuses with plasma membrane at neutral pH. At neutral pH, it will fuse with plasma membrane and it results into conformational change into viral protein. Check out this diagram. Upon fusion, its conformation changes upon uncoating, right? That is the strategy of HIV. So it will release the nucleic acid. Nucleic acid is actually a coated basically. It has to be uncoated and result into release. Second is example which is of influenza virus. In case of influenza virus, strategy is different. It fuses only after endocytosis. In case of HIV, it was direct fusion. In case of influenza virus, it is only after endocytosis. Okay, here the role is played by acidic pH of endocytosome. In case of HIV, it was neutral pH. Here it is acidic pH. So acidic pH triggers a conformational change in the viral surface protein, and in turn it results into release of nucleic acid. Did you get it? Two viruses, special example. Both have different mechanism but same strategy, membrane fusion. Moving ahead, आगे बढ़ते हैं जरा. When we discuss about non-enveloped viruses, till now we had take example of enveloped viruses. Now what about non-enveloped viruses? So in that case, they follow the strategy of pore formation. They follow a strategy of pore formation. How does it work? So just take example of poliovirus. Poliovirus binds to the receptor on a host cell. Okay. Upon binding, it triggers conformational change in the viral particle. Okay. And these conformational change in turn result into receptor mediated endocytosis. Understandable thing is the receptors are present on the host cell and its ligand is present on poliovirus itself. Okay. So in that case, it happens with a conformational change which causes receptor mediated endocytosis. Continuing example, one more is the membrane disruption. You can take example of adenovirus. Adenovirus बहुत special बंदा है, if you know. How does it work? So adenovirus is taken up by same mechanism as poliovirus, receptor mediated endocytosis, but strategy changes from here after receptor mediated endocytosis. Okay, it goes for multiple uncoating steps. After going for multiple uncoating steps in acidic environment of endocytosome, okay, it goes for release of nucleic acid directly into nucleus, not in cytoplasm. Okay, it directly inserts its nucleic acid into nucleus. Here it requires help of one enzyme which is actually viral origin itself, which is viral protease. Okay, and the help is by docking onto NPC. NPC stands for nuclear pore complex. Okay, which are actually small pores present on the membrane of nucleus. Okay, finally it is inserted into nucleus and virus has done its job. Now discussing about bacteria, virus ka discussion khatam. Moving to bacteria. So what is most common mode adopted of bacteria? To enter, they just go for phagocytosis. मतलब बैक्टीरिया सुसाइड करने को अटेम्प्ट करता है बट वो सुसाइड नहीं करता. Actually they are choosing life and to damage the host. Let us see how does it work. We can take example of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So this tuberculosis bacteria enters by inhalation. It enters by inhalation into the host cell and basically actually the respiratory tract, right? Now here what will happen? The macrophage present in the lungs are called alveolar macrophage. They are residing into alveoli. Okay, and here upon engulfment into the phagocyte, they will survive and replace within these macrophages. This results into formation of tubercle. It results into formation of tubercle. And you can see the diagram on the right. You can see there are small tubercle formation within the alveoli, and these are actually localizing tuberculosis bacteria. Okay. Second example of Legionella pneumophila. It causes Legionnaire's disease. Now it is a parasite of freshwater amoeba. It is a parasite of actually freshwater amoeba, and it can also live within alveolar macrophages. While it infects alveolar macrophages, it causes a pneumonia. Okay, it causes a pneumonia. So both the organisms are different, both in fact the same organ, same part of the organ, but they have different effects. One forms tubercle, second forms basically disease, basically pneumonia. Now, second thing, how to invade a non-phagocytic cell. How to invade a non-phagocytic cell. Phagocyte के अंदर localize कर लिया, but if the cell is not phagocyte, then what to do? Take example of Yersinia pseudotuberculosis. This cell or this bacterium has something special. This bacterium expresses special protein called invasin, okay, invasin, and they bind to beta 1 integrins on the host cell surface. Secondly, take example of Listeria monocytogenes. It also possesses a special protein which binds to E-cadherin present on the host cell. So it is basically about adherence with the host cell, right? And after final attachment with the host, what will happen? Both the above bacteria, दोनों के दोनों, Yersinia as well as Listeria, right, fools the host cell to form a cell-cell junction. They fool the cell to form cell-to-cell junction. You may heard about lot many cell-to-cell junctions, right? So in that case, it results into phagocytic uptake of bacteria. Check out this diagram. This mechanism is called zipper mechanism. You may have some questions about zipper mechanism in the examination, right? So these both organisms follows a zipper mechanism. You can check out the diagram. Here you can see the host cell at the bottom, and the bacterium produces adhesins. Okay, these adhesin in case of Yersinia are known as invasin. Okay, and they bind to specific receptor onto the host cell. In case of Yersinia, it binds to beta 1 integrins, while in case of Listeria, it binds to E-cadherins. And end result is assembly of actin filaments nearby the bacterial cell and result into engulfment by phagocytosis. Okay, you can see the popping out structures of a host cell, which will now phagocytose this bacteria in future. This mechanism is zipper mechanism. Okay, please make a note of it. Continuing, we will take example of Salmonella enterica. Previous was zipper mechanism. We will discuss one more mechanism which is called trigger mechanism. Second mechanism is a trigger mechanism. Now here what will happen? Salmonella enterica is known for its ability for this mechanism. How does it work? It will use its type 3 secretion system. अभी हमने एक एग्जांपल लिया था टाइप 3 secretion system का in the same session. For which organism?
Sir, E. coli.
I'm listening. Yes, E. coli. Very good. So type 3 secretion system is over here. It uses type 3 secretion system and it will inject a set of effector molecules into the host cell cytoplasm. These effector molecules are responsible for activation of Rho family GTPase into host cell. Upon activation of these GTPase enzymes, it carries out activation of other cytoskeletal effectors. In turn, overall result is polymerization of actin filaments or actin nearby the bacterial cell. Finally, its entrapment. Keep in mind, here is one term used which is called micropinosome. Micropinosome is a structure which is formed when Salmonella enterica is engulfed by a phagocytic mechanism by host cell. Clear? So this is called micropinosome and the mechanism is called trigger mechanism. So you must remember two mechanisms, zipper and trigger. You can see some photographs in the image. how this salmonella attaching to host surface. These are fluorescent microscopic diagraph. You can see the yellow one is a salmonella, and surrounding area is a active filament polymerized area. In diagram, you are observed to see 2D on the side view. From the top view, you will like this, right? It's totally surrounded by actin filaments, polymerized, and finally it is engulfment. On this diagram, you can see the filamentous or fluorescent organisms which are captured and now residing within the host cell. So it is about bacterial species. दो mechanism पढ़े. Number one, that was zipper mechanism. Second is a trigger mechanism. Now, invasion by eukaryotes, eukaryotic intracellular parasites. So, अब तक के discussion में कोई doubt है? Please let me know first of all. Then we will proceed from this topic.
This trigger mechanism.
Trigger mechanism having some doubt. Okay, we will repeat it. Anything else? Yes, please let me know. Please feel free to ask. If you don't have any query, then we will proceed. But if you have query, feel free to ask. We will resolve it. If you need or if you wish me to repeat something, please let me know. I will repeat it for you. Please don't hesitate. Okay, so we are just revising one part. Which mechanism you replied? Trigger mechanism, na?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first, you can take example of Salmonella enterica. Now, it uses the same mechanism like E. coli to deliver its protein, specific proteins, right? Now, what happens? This bacterium gets close to the host cell. Using type 3 secretion system, it will deliver effector molecules. Basically, they are of protein in origin, proteinaceous substances mostly, right? These effector molecules, when enter the host cell, upon entering, they will activate GTPase enzyme into the cytoplasm of host cell. So basically, mark these proteins, Rho family GTPase. These are activated because of the presence of effector molecule which were delivered by Salmonella enterica to the host cell. Now, this GTPase, upon activation, they will activate some other cytoskeletal effectors. There are a lot many cytoskeletal effectors. So we had not mentioned every, right? We had overall described that there are other cytoskeletal factors. Overall result of this process is altering the assembly of actin. Here, actin polymerization will start nearby the area, localized area. You can see bacterium is adhered on the diagram. Diagram check here. You can see adhered bacteria, and upon adherence, it has released all the material to the cell, and upon release, you can say the consequences. As a consequence, actin filament or polymerization will take place nearby the cell. You can observe in the electron micrograph at the bottom, yellow colored salmonella surrounded by actin filament swollen extensions of the cell. This extension in future will engulf the salmonella, okay, and it will enter the host cell. Here the cell will be non-phagocytic in nature. यहाँ पे ये cell कैसा होगा? Non-phagocytic. And this fever caused by salmonella is known as enteric fever. Now what will happen? When the bacterium is internalized by the cell, the structure which is formed, which contains bacteria within itself, is called micropinosome. Micropinosome is a structure which actually, suppose this is the membrane, the bacterial is entering within the some structure, okay, and this structure is called micropinosome, which contains the small bacterium inside itself. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now we will continue with the next topic. Still, the session is free for doubts. If anybody has doubt, please let me know so that we can move to next point. Okay, no issues. We are moving to next part. Still, if you have any doubts, we will discuss in the end of the session. Now discussing example of eukaryotic intracellular parasites. हमने virus भी देख लिया, bacteria भी देख लिया. Now what is remaining? Eukaryotic parasites, है ना? So these are very rare cases, but still need to be understood, right? Now, in case of viruses or bacteria, they have some energy requirement to enter the host cell, and that energy is provided by host cell itself, right? But in case of eukaryotic parasites, if the parasite is eukaryotic in nature, bacteria is prokaryote, virus cannot be classified as a cell, right? So in that case, when we discuss about a special category of parasite called a eukaryotic intracellular parasite, energy expenditure is on itself or a part of parasite itself. Energy उसको खुद को देनी पड़ेगी. And no doubt eukaryotes have a huge source of energy, है ना? So which organelle of cell is known as powerhouse of the cell?
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria. Excellent. Taking example of an eukaryotic parasite, Toxoplasma gondii. Now what happens? Upon approaching to the host cell, when it comes closer to host cell, it push a special structure called conoid into the host cell. एक special structure है, note कर देना word. We will discuss it in diagram also. A structure called conoid. It push it into the host cell. Now, parasite use all the energy from itself. It won't utilize any part of host cell at that time. शुरुआत में इन्वेस्टमेंट खुद करते हैं. It is called investment, right? For parasite, it is investment. थोड़ा एनर्जी इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो क्या होस्ट सेल का सारा सामान मिलेगा, right? Now what will happen? It requires over here special protein, special myosin, okay, to enter into the host cell. Now here one thing should be marked is there is no fusion with a lysosome. Lysosome. What is the second name of lysosome?
Suicidal bed.
Suicidal bed.
Suicidal bags. Very good. So basically there is no fusion with lysosome, and here what it will do, it will take up metabolic intermediates and nutrients from the host cell, right? Let us see how does it work. Now keep in mind similar strategy is used by malarial parasite to invade the RBC, okay? But shall we discuss about Toxoplasma gondii? Check out this, a life cycle. So just check out from the left side, attachment. It has one structure called conoid at the end. You can check the conoid. It will just attach the host cell with the conoid. It will go for invasion with the same organ, same conoid. It will use myosin, specially myosin का use होगा host cell में, right? And now it will enter within the cell. And when it enters the cell, it is actually like endocytosis. It will have a membrane of cell itself, okay, membrane enclosed compartment. Within this compartment, it will replicate, prepare multiple copies, and finally it will lyse the cell for release. Once it is released, it will infect the target cell. You can check out this diagram, right? It is clearly understandable and basic and easy mechanism. How does it work? Okay, simplest mechanism. Use a special structure called conoid. Continuing, one more organism called Trypanosoma cruzi. Yeah, this is one of the quite good examples actually. It causes a special disease called Chagas disease. It is a causative agent of Chagas disease. Now what happens when we focus on host cell attachment? First of all, what will it do? It will, upon attachment with the host cell, you can check out diagram. We will just discuss diagram altogether. You can see the diagram, attachment. Once it is attached to host cell receptor, which are specific for its ligand, it will result into elevated calcium levels. Okay, it will elevate the calcium level into the cytoplasm of the host cell. Can anybody tell me which organelle of cell is known as storehouse of the calcium?
Endoplasmic reticulum.
ER.
Excellent, very good. So in that case, calcium ion is released. In short, they will induce the cell signaling system, which result in the release of calcium. So finally, the intracellular level of calcium will increase, specifically speaking for cytoplasm, and it result into recruitment of lysosome at the site. You can see diagram number, basically third point. And when it access or get access to lysosomal compartment, it will change to acquire sialic acid. Sialic acid is our own material, right? And finally, it will result or it will go for secretion of special protein, which is pore forming toxin. Pore forming toxin means it forms a pore into the membrane of the cell, and by actually polymerization. Have you studied complement system?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Then it will be easy for me. You may understand about the activity of MAC, membrane attack complex, especially the activity of C9. It is just molecules which are working like C9. They are not family members of C9 actually, but they are working like C9. They will just bind. One protein will bind to the cell or membrane, and it will polymerize one by one. More and more molecules will polymerize with itself, and they will form a channel, a pore it in the surface. Okay, and once it forms the surface, it will release. Right. So first stage is attachment. Second stage is calcium signaling or calcium increase. Third is a fusion with a lysosome. Fourth is invasion. Fifth is a secretion of pore forming protein. And finally, it lyses the surrounding membrane. Pathogen is now free within the cell. It is free within the host cell, and now it is free to replicate within the cell. तो इसने सारी स्ट्रेटेजी यूज करके सारा काम कर दिया. सारा मतलब attachment with the cell, entry into the cell, replicate within the cell, everything all together. Okay, so it is Trypanosoma causi which causes Chagas disease. Continuing our discussion with more examples. One of the example is Macrosporidia. Just check out the spore structure. ये spore का structure देखिए diagram में. Now what happens actually? Macrosporidia is responsible for causing opportunistic infections into the people with AIDS. Those people were infected with HIV. Okay, and frequency of this kind of infection is directly dependent on host cell for some metabolic functions. Okay, now focus on structures. You can see, you can just check out the structure of Macrosporidia here. The spore. You can see the vacuole, the nucleus, plasma membrane, spore coat, and main thing to be marked is a polar tube. Polaroplast. Okay, polar tube खास mark करना. Okay, it have a polar tube to go for invasion. What will happen? These will discharge its polar tube once it contacts the host cell. Okay, when it approaches host cell, it contacts the host cell. Immediately, it will result into discharge of polar tube, and upon that contact, it will release all the internal contents of the spore into the host cell cytoplasm. Once all the things enters the host cell cytoplasm, they will be able to replicate within the host cell. वो host cell में आराम से replication कर पाएंगे. Okay. You can see the mechanism on the diagram in the center bottom. See, this spore has approached the target cell. It has discharged the polar tube, or basically just like firing a gun. Basically, a rope containing rod. See the injection ho gaya. And finally, the tube is internally open, right? This tube transfers all the content of the cell into the host cell, and finally, it will be able to replicate. it will be able to grow. Keep in mind, spore is not live structure actually. Spores are actually dormant, but they are able to do one activity, that is discharge of polar tube. Upon transfer, they will get nutrient from the host cell. They will grow indefinitely. And you can see one fluorescent micrograph of Microsporidia. The example is of Encephalitozoon cuniculi. Now continuing, there is one special thing that is called alteration of host cell behavior. आगे देखा वो क्या था? Behavior of vectors, है ना? Vector का behavior change होता था. Here we will discuss about behavioral change into the host cell. How does it change the behavior? So this behavioral change is observed after the cell signaling. Now pathogens are very smart. You know, as I told you, pathogen always benefits. Pathogens are very smart. So pathogens has evolved strategy to exploit host cell signaling mechanisms. Cell signaling में आपने पढ़ा होगा, थोड़ा idea तो होगा ही, so there is no issue. When we discuss about viruses, they follow one of the two alternative courses. What are the courses? Number one, multiply normally and get released. वायरस के केस में ये चीज मोस्ट कॉमन होती है. Simply get into the cell, multiply and get released. Second strategy is silent killer strategy. There is no such word actually in a scientific world, but I'm just giving you example. What will they do is they will remain dormant. They will remain dormant, and eventually they will transform the cell into malignant cell. Okay, it is a kind of cancer activity, right? They will transform the cell into malignant cell. So which one is more dangerous as per your opinion? The first one or second one?
Second one.
Any other option? Any other answer? Indeed, I would like to say that both are dangerous, equal dangerous, because both have their own consequences, which are always fatal to the host, right? Now, much more things we will discuss is effector proteins expressed by pathogens, right? Somewhat discussion about plant species. It is. In case of plant species, you can observe is there are certain effector proteins which are expressed by pathogens. These effector proteins are specifically functioning to infect the host species, which are a plant in nature. Secondly, take example of HIV and Salmonella. Both has the same function. What they do? They simply damage or destroy the host cells, right? Third, take example of Vibrio. What they do is that they will go for toxic waste production. So every has unique strategy. What the Mycobacterium tuberculosis does, it will simply work with body's own immune response, right? Now, there is one topic actually, virally induced cell transformation. How virus can transform the cell, right? So we'll have a small discussion about this viral induced cell transformation and continue. So when we see the cycle of virus, when we see the viral cycle, life cycle, you will observe few stages. What are the stages? Attachment, penetration, uncoating, replication and expression, and finally assembly and release. These are basically the phases in viral cycle, right? And when you observe viral infection, types of infection can be considered as three. Number one is a cytosolial, means it is actually killing the host cell. Number two, persistent, they will live within the cell. And the third is very dangerous, that is called transforming. It will transform the host cell into something different, right? So normally what happens? Due to viral transformation, it disrupts the normal expression of host cells genes in favor of expressing limited number of viral genes. Okay, I'm discussing about the last strategy, transformation, right? Virally induced cell transformation. We are not going to discuss right now cytosolial and persistent activity. आगे थोड़ा देख लिया, right? But main thing is a transformation. So what will happen? The transformation of cell is specially done to express limited number of viral genes, not others, right? When we see a strategy to detect viral transformation, you can have some phenomena to be observed. You can observe physiological changes, you can observe biological changes, and you can check genetic response, or finally the change of host cells. So host cell dekhe, host cell ka behavior dekhe, you will be able to check the viruses. We can't see virus with the naked eyes. We can't see them with the normal microscope. What we can do is we have only option, that is observing the host cell, right? You can observe physiological, biological, or genetic responses, or any other changes, right? The changes has to be observed into the host cell. What are the physiological changes? Check out about immortalization. If the cell become a cancerous cell, they will be immortal, isn't it? They can't die. Second, encourage independent growth. Number two, there is biological changes. In case of biological changes, you can take example of repression or activation of viral and host cell genes. Okay, biological changes makes expression pattern level changes, so that genetic pattern expression level pattern will be changed. When we discuss genetic changes, one of the best example of genetic changing is a lysogeny. Okay, now in case of lysogeny, what will happen? It will lead to damage to the chromosome of host cell. Host cell chromosome is going to be damaged in case of that. Uh, Taking one example over here, a retrovirus. There is a class of retrovirus, and we can have a lot many examples. We will specifically take example of epsilon retrovirus, right? You can check these viruses in the diagram, left side and right side, immature versus mature. What is your observation? Tell me. What is your observation in this? Simple observation. जितना भी पता चलता है बोलो. I will explain. Don't
Sir,
worry.
capsid is well developed in mature one.
Good. Then any other thing?
Nucleocapsid change.
Good. So now what I mean to say now, this virus, we're taking example of WDSV, feline dermosarcoma virus. Now this virus is not for humans actually. Actually, it causes a dermal sarcoma in walleye pike. It is a kind of fish, walleye pike. Right. Now we are observing seasonal variation. Two viruses are there. Whatever tumors are occurring during the winter will slough during the springtime. It is seasonal variation. है ना? So there are two viruses. One is immature, second is mature. Both are observed in different seasons. Second example is HTLV, right? Human T-cell leukemia virus. It induces oncogenesis into the human cells. You can use the term which is called leukemogenesis. Okay. Keep in mind, although the leukemogenesis is quite inefficient, but still we need to consider the example. And you can check the right one. It is example of HTLV1, right? So these are the two example of viruses which can go for seasonal changes, special categories. And one more is HCV. Now HCV, if HCV goes for persistent infection into the host, in that case it may lead to chronic liver damage, and ultimately it can result into hepatocellular carcinoma. And here is the virus, HCV, hepatitis C virus. It affects the liver, right? Human liver. Hepatitis तो आपने अच्छे से पढ़ा ही होगा, है ना? And here I am just showing you one diagram. Basically, this diagram is a chimera of lot many things. This diagram indicates or shows metabolic pathways altered by virus infection. Okay, these are the metabolic pathways which are altered by virus infection. You can see, just check out the mitochondria and other things and all the pathways. I will show you the sum. Okay, like there is a mitochondria, there is a TCA cycle, everything is connected over here, right? So one phenomena is lipid synthesis, which is affected by all these viruses, HBV and not cell. Secondly, you can check effect of glutamine metabolism, right? So glutamine metabolism is affected by these viruses, right? AWT, HCV, HSV. Similarly, the same TCA cycle at the level of succinyl CoA is affected by HSV1, HCMV. Okay. Similarly, you can also observe for other activities. So in short, when we observe all the cellular pathways, lactase and exosomal biosynthetic pathway, everywhere we will observe effect of viruses. So viruses are able to infect the cell or alter the activity of the cell at various levels. You can check out wherever there is biochemical pathway, you will find at least one example of virus what is affecting it. Okay, but thanks God we are not getting that much frequently affected by these viruses, right? You should thank God, but not thank for the COVID. Now, pathogen induced diseases in animal and plants. थोड़े disease के example लेते हैं. Few example of few diseases, a small glimpse. So bacteria induced disease in plant. Now, when plant is infected, हमने animal देख लिया, bacteria देख लिया. Let's discuss some about plants, right? So, when you want to see the bacterial-induced disease in plant, you need to check out for infection symptoms, right? So, what are the symptoms? The symptoms start from the small to large. Small means formation of small mosaic to large plant abnormalities, mosaic to galls or distorted plant parts, right? Secondly, when there is a hormonal disruption, in that case, abnormal growth of the roots can be found. Similar happen with the stem, the floral structures, and sometimes abnormal flower colors. So there are two terms over here which are mentioned. Phyllodes, which is actually about abnormal growth of flower, and abnormal color of virus is called virescence, abnormal flower color, right? These two terms should be kept in mind. Sometimes there are questions in the examination about these 2 points, right? Phyllodes and virescence. So what are the most common symptoms observed in plant? You can check out for human. बुखार आ गया भाई इसको, infection लग गया, डॉक्टर बोल देगा there is a viral infection, take 2 days rest, that's it. But what about plant? In case of plant, what you can do is you can observe certain symptoms. Symptoms like basic symptoms like spots on leaves, spots on fruit, some blights or dead ending of tissues on the leaves. You can check out the stems or trunks for the same thing, right? You can check out the roots or any other part of plant, usually roots or tubers. One more thing is there, symptoms may disappear too after particular stage of growth plant. Okay, they become inconsequential with further growth of plant. So ये सारे symptoms क्या क्या होते हैं? Let's take a look. First look, the mosaic. First look is the mosaic. You can see the mosaics on the plant leaf, right? Mosaic ऐसा होता है. Secondly, you can check out for the galls. ये galls तो हमने कई बार देखे होंगे garden के trees में, है ना? Next, virescence. As discussed, abnormal flower color. You can see abnormal color of flower in this. And phyllodes. Pardon me for the spelling mistake. Here Y is missing. So here you can see abnormal development of flower, right? So mosaic, galls, virescence, phyllodes. Now moving towards our further discussion. Bacteria induced disease of animals. Anthrax. Anthrax तो सबने सुना होगा, है ना? So it is caused by bacterium Bacillus anthracis. When you observe this disease, you will find two types of this disease. One is the cutaneous and second is inhalational, right? When you focus on inhalational, which is more fatal, You can observe flu-like illness which progresses to pneumonia. ये एंथ्रेक्स के बारे में सब दुनिया को सबको पता कैसे चला? Normally anthrax was totally unknown, but there was one time when world come to know about anthrax by warfare, right? It was almost after the Pentagon attack or US attacks by the militants somehow, right? So at that time the world came to know about anthrax disease, है ना? So it is a biowarfare actually. Second disease is leptospirosis. Leptospirosis हमें दिखता नहीं normally, but when we visit the hospital, in hospital you will be able to know that it is a very dangerous disease. In monsoon there are lot many cases of leptospirosis. Okay, so basically it is caused by bacteria of genus Leptospira. They cause high fever, severe headache, muscle aches, and it may include jaundice too. One is anaplasmosis, right? It is a kind of tick fever which is caused by invasion of RBCs by a special rickettsial parasite which is called Anaplasma ovis, right? Its transmission is carried out through insect vectors. Example of vectors includes the horseflies, ticks, and the flies. Okay. Moving ahead, tularemia. It is caused by the bacterium called Francisella tularensis. Okay, it causes sudden fever, chills, headache, diarrhea, muscle aches, and joint pain. Right, this tularemia. Keep in mind, whatever disease I am explaining to you are mostly unknown to the routine world, right? But it must be known to microbiologists or any student of life science. Next is the bovine tuberculosis. Now we will surprise that what kind of tuberculosis it is. It is different. Is it different? Yeah. So it is caused by bacterium, Mycobacterium bovis, right? Because of the its origin, it is called bovine tuberculosis. And there are three types of TB actually. TB तीन type के होते हैं. Number one, human. Second, avian, and third is bovine. Okay. Bovine is for animals, right? अपने Secondly, human. Avian is for birds, right? It is found in birds actually. So three types of tuberculosis actually existing on the earth. So these are some unusual diseases which are not likely known to all. Now discussing about virus for the plants, right? So in that case, you need to observe viral disease in plant by simply observing the symptom. What are the symptoms to be observed? Number one, developmental abnormality. Number two, chlorosis. Third, necrosis. These three symptoms indicate viral infection, okay, in the plant. When we discuss about most plant viruses, they are small single-stranded RNA genomes. In that case, some encode double-stranded while some encodes basically DNA or RNA. Clear? So it may encode only 3 or 4 proteins, not more than that. ये virus का genome बहुत छोटा होता है, and they encode very few proteins. Very few means very few, right? So in that case, they are very limited proteins. Number three, how this virus transmits from one plant to another plant, right? So they transmit from one plant to another plant by a vector, right? Vectors, you people already know about that, right? They might be insect or some fungi or nematodes or protozoa. Till now we had known about got knowledge about vectors which are actually insects, but you can also consider a few more vectors, right? The vectors are insect, fungi, and nematodes, right? So this example should be kept in your mind. Vectors means it is not only about the insect, it is also about others too. Taking one example of beet leaf hopper, एक example लेते हैं beet leaf hopper का. This one. This is a causative agent that transmit the curly top virus, right? Which is one of the important actually fatal diseases of plants, mostly found in the plants, right? You can see the photograph of beet leaf hopper. शायद आपने इसे कहीं देखा हो आते जाते वक्त कहीं ना कहीं, है ना? Yeah. Virally induced energy, basically injury in animals. Plant हो गया, थोड़ा animal का discussion कर लेते हैं अब. So in that case, you can just consider some effects of virus onto the host cell. One is cytopathic effect, right? In case of cytopathic effect, note the term, the term note करके रखना, cytopathic effect. So it is about degeneration of cell due to viral infection, right? So what kind of injuries it may include? It may include detachment from the substrate, right? It may include membrane permeability changes. It may include lysis of the cell. It may also include alteration of the shape, apoptosis, and membrane fusion. Membrane fusion can be considered with one more term over here, which is called Sankeytrium. Okay, just mark the term. When we take an example of poliovirus over here, it shut down the cellular functions of the neurons in CNS and PNS. CNS means, what is full form of CNS?
Central nervous system.
Exactly. And what is PNS?
Peripheral nervous system.
Very good. So in that case, these systems are affected, which result into cell death. And because of that, it result into paralysis. आपने देखा होगा polio patients को, right? कभी कभी, and they have a almost, you can say, paralysis on the leg, right? So that is the reason how it causes a paralysis. Sometimes it also even causes death. One more is immunopathological injury, right? Is it related to immune system or immune system's response? Clear? So what is considered in this case? You can take example of impairment of immune system due to infection of immune cells. If WBC itself is infected, immune system will be impaired, right? Now, what happens in this case? The body becomes weak since the defense system is almost gone, right? Own WBCs are fighting with each other, right? It may happen. Autoimmune disease, right? Own WBCs with fight with each other in this case. So in that case, it is one of the example of immunopathological injury. One more thing which can cover over here is hemorrhagic fevers, right? It is not only fever, hemorrhagic fevers, right? So in that case, when body goes for overexpression, or you can say enhanced immune response, the purpose of body to increase the temperature of body, basically to increase the temperature, is for killing the viruses. We know that when we heat something, it will die. So it tries its best to keep maximum temperature, right? In that case, the purpose is to kill the virus, but it may in turn result into hemorrhage, right? Hemorrhagic fever. Yeah. So it was all about my content. Please let me know if there are any queries in the session. I have posted my email ID and contact number over here. If you have any query, even in future, you can contact me. But presently, we will discuss queries related to today's discussion. Right.
Students, do you have any query? Hello, students.
Sir, could you suggest any book for this host pathogen interaction?
Actually, you can refer all the cell biology books for this. Cell biology books are best for understanding this topic. You can prefer, I just forgot the name, title, but you can see one is Cooper, one of the good book is Cooper, right? But more better book I have, the title is not available with me right now, but I can do is I can just provide you the material of the same along with the ebook.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So,
Right, and I have developed my own literature for some topics, and I can also provide the same to you all.
Yeah, that would be great.
sir, you can mail to us. We will share in our classroom, so all the students
Okay,
can
definitely.
access that.
Yeah.
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And yeah, I really appreciate the students for their interactive nature. This interactive nature makes interaction live, the session live. So claps for you all. actually from my side.
No, really. Actually, these are the sincere students we have seen, because there are more than 300 participants, but out of there, these 25 or 30 students are sincerely attend this session. So thank
Definitely,
you.
sir. If even a single student is attending the session, we will do efforts for him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Always we are looking for only 10% mass. We don't need even 100%. Even out of
Exactly.
them, 10% is going to crack the exam. Our all the hard work is going to be success.
Definitely, sir. And these are those students who are really willing to do the same.
Hmm. So
Yes,
finally,
students, would you like to say something else? Okay, sir.
okay. So thank you, Hardik sir, for providing your time schedule or time slot from your busy schedule.
You're welcome, sir.
And students, today we are going to meet once again at 2 p.m. And after the second session, after 4 o'clock, we will share you that link of question or quiz, right? So we will meet again at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much, sir. And please
Thank you, sir.
mail me this PPT and your content.
Sure, sir. I will mail the PPT. I have an ebook, especially for that topic. Along with that topic, I have some developed material from my side. I will send all these things.
Sure. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, students, for your active participation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. I will take a leave from you all.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure,
Goodbye,
sir.
everyone.
Okay. Thank you, sir.